We are going live, Scott Sandlin. We are now officially live. Welcome aboard, everybody. It is time for Sunday Live because it is Sunday and we are live. And every Sunday night we get together, Scott Sandlin and I, and sometimes a guest, to talk about hypnosis, to experience hypnosis, and to talk about all things hypnotic. So welcome aboard, everybody. Down below, you will find a chat box. You can type in that chat box and say hello, ask any questions of me or of Scott Sandlin, or our guest, if we have one, which we don't tonight. You are our guests tonight. But it's great to have everybody here. Scott, what are we going to talk about tonight?
Well, hello and happy Easter, everybody, and happy Easter, Richard. Tonight we're going to be answering one of the questions. You know, we keep saying to you guys, keep sending in your questions and requests for topics and guests, sorts of things. And we got one a couple weeks ago, and it wasn't exactly a question as much as it was a topic. And it was people asking around the idea of intake. And so what we're going to be talking about tonight is how to effectively use the intake and to make it more hypnotic. Because Richard and I both agree, and we've talked about this many times, that when you use your intake time properly, the person has already achieved their change before they close their eyes. And one of the things that Richard said that I heard and I have stolen, I say now, is that you use the hypnosis to ratify the change that has already taken place during the pre-talk and intro to hypnosis. So we want to spend a lot of time tonight talking about that.
It's kind of like hypnosis, like the part where they close their eyes and go into trance. It's the ritual to ratify the change that probably has already taken place.
Exactly that. And so we're going to be doing a lot of discussing that and kind of breaking that down. And this is something that is really important to me because I think one of the things that I talk about is you watch Michael Ellner work, and I think everybody in the chat room or watching this video probably knows of Michael Ellner if they haven't met him. And Michael is a very talented hypnotist with a lot of experience and a lot of practice, and he's won, I think, every award any hypnotist could ever win. He's a bright guy who's done a lot of really cool stuff. And when you watch him work, it's really unfair because he sets himself up to make it easy. So he makes everything look easy because he's figured out a way to make it easy in his pre-talk and his setup. And at HPTI, I watch a lot of intro videos. You know, every Hypnosis 100 project that comes in, I watch and review, and I watch a lot of people who are making the work harder on themselves. And so we want to talk tonight about the difference there and how we can help you make it easier. So that's what we're talking about tonight. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Richard, for posting the link to.
I posted a link to Michael Ellner's webpage. He used to live in New York, but like a lot of New Yorkers, it got too cold and tax rates too high, and so he moved to Florida. And so, for those of you who are going to the IMDHA convention in May, you'll see him. And you'll see me and you'll see Scott. And it's not too late. You know, there are a lot of things coming up that are really pretty cool. The IMDHA convention is coming up May 15, 16, and 17 in Daytona Beach, Florida. And if you're not registered for that, there's plenty of time to register for that. That's an awesome convention. And by the way, it's not too late to get cheap airline tickets. Go to Priceline or something like that. And, come see us and hang out with us in Daytona. But here's something really cool that's coming up, okay? And Sunday Night Live, folks, those of you who are listening here, you have an opportunity that other people really don't have. Because although I posted on Facebook that Scott and I are going to be teaching a class on July 5th and 6th, for the most part, a lot of people don't know about that class yet. They've been out busy doing Easter stuff and family stuff and things like that, or weekend stuff, and they haven't paid attention to what I posted on Facebook. But HPTI is opening its California offices next month, And Scott and I will be teaching the first class in the new classroom at the HPTI headquarters in Newport Beach, California. And that is a 2-day intensive class, and we're going to be teaching on the techniques and protocols for successfully using hypnosis in substance abuse work. And there's actually a link above the video. There's a little box and a little graphic. It's got a picture of me and Scott in it, and it gives you all the details. So we're limited in space. The classroom only holds about 25 people, 24 people, and so we're limited in space for those of you who want to attend live. But I hope to see you there. By the way, for those of you who can't make it to California, the whole thing will be webcast, but you have an opportunity to be one of the first people to participate in an HPTI class at the new HPTI Conference Center. What do you think about that, Scott?
It's super exciting. Richard Clark and I have been talking about having a space like this for 11 years. And 11 years ago, we were in a parking lot, standing in front of a space, deciding if we should get it or not, deciding if we should get the space or not. And I said, I don't think we're ready to be running classes. I mean, we can teach classes here and there, but I don't think we're ready to go all the way. I think I want more clinical experience before we do it. And he said, I think you're ready. I said, I don't feel ready yet. And about a year ago, I said, I'm ready. And so we've been working really hard the last little while, obviously growing HPTI. And now we're going to have a dedicated space. We're going to have interns. We're going to have classes. We're going to have, breakout rooms. We're going to have the whole thing all set. I keep going over there even though it's under construction right now just because I'm excited. I can't wait to have you guys there. And because we're setting it up for HPTI, we're going to have the ability to stream live the classes that go on in there so everyone can be involved. You guys should check it out.
So that's pretty cool. All right, let's go back to the intake process.
Yeah.
Get back on. There's so many exciting things going on. Next week, I'm actually going to Las Vegas to teach a class with Jeff McBride on hypnotic wizardry. So we're going to make it to Vegas next weekend. There's lots of stuff going on. Hit us up on Facebook or send us an email and we'll tell you what else is going on because there's even more than that. But those are some of the highlights. But let's talk about the intake process. Let me kind of describe what happens in my office, and then Scott, if you would describe what happens in your office. First of all, I don't answer my own phone. So when a client comes in my office, that's the first time I've ever talked to them or met them. Now, that's different than most people who answer their own phone. Most of you know Stephanie, who is my administrator, manager, boss, whatever, and she takes all the calls. Okay, she's the one who, if you call, my office number, she answers the phone. If she books your appointment, she talks to you. She does the sales, that kind of stuff. So when you come to see me, it's actually the first time you've ever talked to me, and it's the first time I've ever talked to you. That's probably different than most people. Most people are probably answering their own phone and booking their own appointments. So you may have developed some rapport already. But because it's the first time I've ever met with a client, I have to build rapport with them. Now, I also believe that suggestion begins in the very first moment that they walk in the office door. And so kind of envision it this way. I'm sitting at my desk, and I know that I have a 3 o'clock appointment, right, because it's written down in the calendar. And so I hear the elevator open, bing, right, and then I hear somebody walking down the hall. I know that this is my client, right, because I'm actually the only one on my floor. And so I am ready for them. Okay, my clients are never a surprise to me. The other thing is I do not book clients back to back, so I never have to worry about one client overlapping another. That's an issue for some people who may see a lot of clients in one day, but I always schedule ample time between clients because I don't want that overlap. I need some downtime for myself. So I know they're coming. I hear the elevator bing. I hear them walking down the hallway. The very first thing I do is I stand up from behind my desk and I move forward and I'll shake their hand and I'll direct them to a chair. And the first thing I do is make that eye contact with them. And I'll say, I'm Richard. I am really glad that you're here. Wow, that's nice. That's an affirmation. And then when they sit in that chair, I'll go around to the other side of the desk, and this front desk is where I do my intake, and I'll usually say something along the lines of, well, I really am glad you were here. Stephanie said you would be coming today, and it's amazing how many people have sat in that same chair and experience success with the changes that they came here for. That's an indirect suggestion right out of Milton Erickson's language, hypnotic language patterns. Well, I'm sitting in the same chair. I must be about to experience success as well. And so I try to create in that first moment an experience of affirmation, an experience of rapport and eye contact, and an experience of creating positive suggestions for them. And that really sets the tone for the rest of my intake process. But I think that is a real important strategy that I've adapted that's been helpful to me and to the clients that I work with. Scott, how does it look for you? What's the first moment or two like when you meet a new client in the office?
So I have a slightly different dynamic. I see a lot of clients back to back. So I have a receptionist, but I've talked to all my clients on the phone beforehand because I only work off referrals, or almost completely off referrals. So often I've talked to the person on the phone or their family member on the phone if they're a minor or have an interesting issue. And I've often talked to their referring psych or physician or whoever it was that sent them to me. So I already have a pretty good chunk of backstory. And I also have something, and this is something Richard and I do very differently. I have all my paperwork online. And so I've already had them fill out all their paperwork. And Richard and I have a different philosophy on this, but one of the main reasons I do this is because I ask them to put down goals at the end of the document. So I have 1 month, 3 month, 6 month, 1 year, and 5 year goals on my form. So I want them already, before they walk in my door, I want them to have to presuppose and future pace some successes before they even meet me. So that's part of it. So I've read their paperwork. I've talked to the referring physician. I've done those things. My receptionist calls me and says, your next client is here. Can I send them up? I say yes. I have a moment to review their chart again. While they're in, I have the world's slowest elevator. I'm on the top floor with a slow elevator, so I have, days right then. So I sit there and I flip through their notes one more time, get myself ready, and then I go meet them at the elevator. The doors open, I stand in a spot, they look around, and right then I reach my hand out and say, hi, I'm Scott Sandlin, welcome, walk them back to my office, sit them down, and I say, so, you and I, we spoke on the phone, I read your paperwork that I got, thank you very much. All that said, how can I help you today? And so when I ask that question, I really do presuppose and imply I can help you today. And that's where I want to get. The next thing I want to, and those are the basics there. And the next thing I want to talk about is establishing that rapport. But we can come back to that in a moment. But I want people to be thinking about, as Richard and I are talking, strategically and thematically. Some of you guys who are watching this are pros who've been doing this for a long time, and you already know this. But for those of you who don't have as much experience, understand that entire time, from the first contact all the way to the induction, you want to be making sure you're setting up an impression, a relationship, rapport, all those sorts of things, and a couple others that we can dig into in a little bit.
And by the way, an easy way to do that is what are called yes sets. If you're not familiar with yes sets, this is something that both beginners and advanced hypnotists can do in their office. During that pre-talk, I'm looking for any opportunity for my client to say yes, to affirm something. So I'll say to a client, for example, I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head, but is the temperature in the room comfortable for you? Yes. There's a yes. Did you have any trouble finding our office once you came into the, they don't have trouble, so that'll be a no. But I'm just trying to think, but it's hard for some reason for me to do it. But I'm looking for every opportunity for them to say yes. Are you ready to make a change today? Yes. Great. Did you eat breakfast today? Yes. Did you travel here in a car? Yes. And I'm looking for the affirmations, because then when I get to, are you ready to make a transformation? Yes, is the answer to that. So we're using yeses, affirmations throughout the intake process as I'm building rapport with them to help direct them to the yes answers when it comes to making change. You want to clarify that, Scott, since I couldn't think off the top of my head?
Sure. So what we're talking about is rapport generation, right? And getting them in the mindset of going along with what you're saying. So with that in mind, one of the nice things you can do with that, a kind of a shift on the yes set, is a piece that's pacing and leading, right? So that's what Richard's really doing with the yes set. You're pacing the yeses and then you lead with the yes. It's kind of a different thing, but it's close enough. So you get the person paced into doing something, and then you bring them to where you want them to go. You pace what's happening, and then you lead what you want to have happen. Okay? So I'll say that again. You pace what's happening, and then you lead what you want to have happen. So Richard's asking questions that he knows are happening, so he's getting yeses, and then he leads with what he wants to have happen. So was it easy finding the place? Hey, has traffic died down out there? It was a little nuts this morning when I was coming in. Yeah, it's fine. Oh, good. Ask a couple other yeses like that, and are you having a nice day? And it can be anything. But what you want to do is get them to go from pace to lead, and making that transition is really nice. Let me see what's going on in the chat.
Well, I was actually laughing at what Kelly wrote, and just anything to build rapport and to break state, Kelly said she had a client once arrived in the midst of a rainstorm. He shook himself off saying, "It's really raining." And Kelly exclaimed, "How weird is that?" Of course, she lives in Washington where it seems to rain every day. Although I have to admit, I've been to Washington many times. It never seems to rain when I'm there. So I must bring the sunshine with me. It's always beautiful weather whenever I'm in Washington. But now let me talk about a little bit different. This is the great thing for people to learn in this chat room with both of us here, is that we can arrive at the same success even though we do things different. You have your clients fill out the form ahead of time. I don't. In fact, I don't have my clients fill out any forms until about 20 minutes into the session, and here's why. We're all familiar with the 20-minute lull, correct?
I am, but let's pretend half the people in here aren't.
Okay. They say that in any conversation there is a 20-minute lull. Go to friends, dinner with your friends, everyone's chatty for 20 minutes, and then suddenly after 20 minutes there's silence. Right? Everyone's looking for the next topic to talk about. Or you meet somebody new and you start to chat with them, and after you really engage with them, you connect with them, and after 20 minutes you're just kind of looking at each other wondering, is the conversation over or is there more? There's kind of that natural 20-minute lull. By the way, not just do we notice that in conversations, but TED Talks notices it. The reason why TED Talks are limited to 20 minutes is because at 20 minutes, we tend to move our attention elsewhere. So at 20 minutes into a intake with a new client, there's a natural break, okay? I'll begin asking questions like, Scott, how can I help you today? Or, I'll often say this to my clients, I'll just acknowledge it. I'm really glad that you're here. For a lot of people, calling a hypnotist is the last person they call. And so what is it that brought you to my office today? How is it that you heard about me, et cetera? And just any questions to build rapport. I'll ask them about solutions that they've tried to use before, et cetera. But after about 20 minutes, I've been conversational with them, hopefully pacing and leading them towards positive affirmations. But at this point, I'll usually always give my clients the paperwork. And I'll say to my clients, by the way, just like any other office, there's some paperwork. And so if you'll take about 5 or 10 minutes to fill this paperwork out, that would be great. And I usually give them my intake form. I give them an informed consent, which gives me written permission to work with them, as well as to contact them, voicemail, email, etc. I might give them if I'm doing a smoking cessation, I might give them the Fagerstrom nicotine dependency quiz or something like that. If I'm doing, couples work, I might give them the assessment of primary representational systems, but I give my clients the paperwork. And so what I'll say to my client is this, just like any other office, this one has some paperwork. So if you'll take a few minutes and fill that out, while you're working on that paperwork, I'll go and get you a receipt. So will you be paying today with a check or with a credit card or with cash? And they'll always say to me, yes. I don't know why. I've asked that question to hundreds, probably to thousands of people. Are you going to pay with a cash check or a credit card? And their answer is yes.
You set up a yes set, so I mean, you've already got a yes set with them.
I guess that's why, but it always, I'm very clear on that, and everyone says yes. And so then I'll ask it again, a credit card or cash or check, and I'm sorry, and they'll say, a credit card. They'll hand me their credit card, and I'll say, well, you're filling out that paperwork. I'll go get you a receipt. I step out of the room. And what I'm really doing there is, this isn't really about getting the receipt. This is really about me. I've just spent 20 minutes talking to somebody, and now I have 5 minutes or 10 minutes on my own to sort of aimlessly wander around the building and really sort of strategize in my head, what am I going to do during the formal process of hypnosis with them? What suggestions am I going to make? So I'll even take some purple stickies, because I don't know where my yellow stickies are, and I'll write down some suggestions that I'm going to be using during my session with them. And so then I'll come back after about 8 minutes or so, usually right before they're done with the paperwork. The paperwork's not lengthy. It's not like lots of forms to fill out. And then I'll hand them the receipt. But a lot of more people wonder, when do I get paid during a session? I get paid up front. And my paperwork is the way I create it. You give me money, I give you paperwork, right? And now we're on track there. So that works for me as well.
So the reason I don't do it that way, even though I respect that reason, and Richard and I have had conversations about this, is because I don't want to leave the room. Because the way I want to generate rapport is with banter and similarities, and people like people that are like themselves, right? And because I've been doing this a long time, or anybody else, who's been doing this a long time, I've heard about a lot of hobbies, I've heard about a lot of jobs, I've heard about a lot of things, and so I can be conversational about a lot of stuff I've never done, which means I can ask one or two interesting follow-up questions that imply that I really do know something interesting about this thing, having never done it myself. So I can say, so do you have any hobbies? What are you doing? And as I'm doing that, I'm eliciting primary representational systems. I'm eliciting values. I'm eliciting just their lifestyle. There's a lot of stuff that comes from that. But as they do, the follow-up questions I'm asking, they're saying, wow, this guy really knows about, the thing that I like to do that I've never tried. And I feel this is a great way to generate rapport, because a big part of this is about rapport generation and what's called the therapeutic relationship. There's a lot of studies that say the relationship you create with your client is dramatically more important than the process you use with your client. Okay? I'll say that again. There are a lot of studies that say the relationship you create with your client is more important than the process you use with your client. That's important. And a lot of people get hung up on, there's all these classes on, should you do parts therapy, should you do regression, should you do future pacing, should you do direct suggestion? And there is an argument that all of that is second place to how did they feel during the intake. And so one of the questions I like to, or one of the comments I like to bring up, it's sort of an observation. When the client tells me what they do for a living or what they do that's difficult, or what they do for work or fun or whatever, they tell me what they do for work, I go, oh, that seems like a pretty important job. I mean, that sounds like it's really interesting. And they go, yeah, it is. And I go, that sounds like that's one of those jobs that has invisible challenges that you know how to overcome that someone like me would never see coming. And they go, yeah, and they all of a sudden they're telling you the secrets of their job that feel disrespected and overlooked, and you're asking them and expecting to know things about their job that nobody else knew to ask. And it's with blind, sort of generic fishing questions, but you're like, that's one of those jobs that, people know it exists, but there's details in that job that are really, interesting challenges. Like, it's true when you talk about customer service or whatever the thing is. And so you start getting them to realize that you're having a different conversation with them than the doctor that they went to go see or the psychotherapist they went to go see. because I want to set up the idea that coming to see me is different. So that's a piece on why I want to go in that direction. But before I say anything else, I want to bring this up. This is a topic that's incredibly important, like I said, to me. And so HPTI has an entire class about this. And it's the Hypnosis 101 class. And HPTI is growing and doing a lot of really exciting stuff right now. And so Hypnosis 101, I've taught it. Richard's co-taught it with me before. In the next couple of weeks, it's really exciting. We've got Kelly Woods and James Hazelrig are both going to be teaching this class. It's on intake, it's on first session, it's on hands-on, and it's the coolest class because it's designed for people who've been learning hypnosis online to go learn how to do the hands-on skills. So, I'm going to post a link in the chat right now. If you want to take a class from either one of them in their respective hometowns, and you can see how important, because I know both of them do this really well because we've had long conversations about it. The setting up of the therapeutic relationship and setting up what we call the belief to expectation ratio. The belief to expectation ratio, when you get enough belief from that client and that expectation is there, or the expectation to ritual ratio, I was saying it wrong, the expectation to ritual ratio. Their expectation is set up so much, the ritual required gets reduced. And so that's how Michael Ellner does it. He's easy on himself by setting up and priming this client with expectation before they ever close their eyes. So that was my rant on that. Sorry about that, Richard. I got carried away and excited.
No, carried away and excited is awesome. In fact, while you were getting carried away, I clicked that link in the chat box that you posted. And let me tell you, if you have to go anywhere on the planet Earth, either Seattle or Austin are the places to go. So you'll be happy, really, with James in Austin or with Kelly up there in the Seattle area. So those are some great opportunities. There's like opportunities abounding everywhere. By the way, every Sunday night we get together, and we get together to talk about hypnosis and to experience hypnosis as well. In a little while, I'm going to actually lead us through a process of hypnosis. Now, with my clients, when they come in the office, I try to set up success wherever I can. With my smokers, one of the questions I'll ask them is, have you had your last cigarette yet? And if they say, a lot of them will say, yes, I have. I had my last cigarette last night, or I had my last cigarette, outside of the building before I came in. That's great. If I have a smoker, by the way, who says, well, I don't know. Well, then they haven't had their last cigarette. That means they have cigarettes on them still, right? So, or in their car. So I'll ask them, do you have cigarettes, in your purse or in your car? And they'll usually say yes. And I'll say, well, great. What I'd like you to do is go downstairs and have your last cigarette. And bring me back the rest of your cigarettes and any lighters or other accoutrements of smoking. And then we'll get started. And they usually jump at that opportunity if they haven't already said yes to go have a cigarette. And they go downstairs, they get their cigarettes and clean out their car and empty out their ashtray, and then they'll come back up. And when they come up, I have a basket in my office, and it's on my desk, and it's sitting there when they come back in the door. And I don't have to say anything. They just automatically put it in there. Well, that is them giving it up. They've already become a non-smoker as soon as they put those cigarettes in the basket. And so from this point forward, people are like, how do you know I'm going to be a non-smoker at the end of the first session? Because you're a non-smoker before we ever do the session. That's how I know.
So let's deconstruct that for a moment, because that's, at the surface level, that's just kind of a simple conversational thing. But what Richard just did is what we're talking about in terms of making the job easy. Richard sent the client away to go have their final cigarette, right? The guy, the girl, he or she went downstairs to have their final cigarette. Let's say it takes them 5 minutes. That's 5 minutes of them knowing that this is it. This is 5 minutes of them saying, I have to get up and walk down the hallway, get in the elevator, press the button, go down there, light the cigarette, make sure to bring the cigarette. The whole time they're having that cigarette, they're thinking, this is my final cigarette. This is it, right? So in terms of expectation, in terms of ritual, right, that's a whole hypnotic element. And then they put the cigarettes in that little basket. That's them confirming to Richard I'm done, and I'm ready, right? That just made whatever Richard does in the session really just icing on the cake. I mean, all he was not
icing on the cake. Because as soon as I put those remaining cigarettes in the basket, they're already a non-smoker. Now we're just doing ritual to ratify the change that has already taken place. In fact, in my induction, I'll say to them, and as you close your eyes and relax, you can congratulate yourself because what you've accomplished today is, blah, 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 blah. By the way, and this works not just with smoking. It works with all my clients. I will say to my weight loss clients, boy, I'm really glad you're here. I'm assuming you've tried a lot of other methods to lose weight, and they'll usually say, well, yeah, I've done this and that and this diet and that diet. Great. And I'll say to them, have you had your last diet yet? And they'll look at me and say, well, are you going to put me on a diet? And that gives me an opportunity to explain to them, no, we're not going on a diet. What we're going to be doing instead is we're going to be making different choices from this point forward, which has nothing to do with a diet and everything to do with transforming or living life differently. I'll ask my pain control clients, have you come to the point where you're ready to let go of your pain controlling you? For most pain control clients, pain controls them. And they might not have even had this realization until I ask the question. And by asking the question, I give them their control back before we even do a session. And so we can use the same question in a number of different ways, with a number of different issues in our pre-talk before we ever even close the eyes.
So the idea, going into this again, the idea, well, actually, before I jump into that, let's talk about what Kelly asked about in the chat room, because I was about to run, and I don't need to do that yet. Kelly's talking about when a client comes in and they sit down and they just burst out into tears, and they just start crying. And they feel like they're in a safe place where they can just open up. I see clients where a couple minutes in, they'll say, I've never told anybody this. I've been to a therapist before, but I never told them this, or I don't know why I'm telling you this, and there's just sort of this safe space for them to just let it all out, whether it be secrets or tears or something, and all of that comes out. Richard, what do you do in those situations?
It's really kind of interesting. I'm a firm believer that there are no bad emotions. I'm not real uncomfortable with emotions. But at the same time, I'm not doing therapy in my office. So a lot of times, I've never told anybody this yet, is a preface to, something that they think is a cause, okay? And so sometimes I've had to learn, and this is a balance, of letting clients know that I don't need that information. Because I don't need to get lost into the minutiae of the details, I've had this happen. It doesn't happen most of the time, but I've had this happen on occasion. One lady came in my office and she just started unloading everything on the table. It was like, well, I'm here. I'm really glad I'm here. Let me tell you about this trauma and that trauma and this experience, that experience. And I actually literally had to say to her, for everyone who comes in the office, they've experienced difficult times, and you're telling me that you've experienced a lot of difficult times. But that's the great thing about hypnosis, is despite where we've been, we can make changes in the present. And I'll move into a short discussion of mindfulness and really almost cut them off, because I don't want to get lost into the details. It really doesn't matter if they were molested as a child or, never paid their parking tickets. They can make changes today no matter where they've been. I'm a firm believer that the past is independent of my ability to experience success in the present. So when they start to emote and tell me those things, I'll try to redirect them to the present and what I really need to know about.
So you just brought up a really important skill, which is respectful interrupting and state breaks, right? And like you said, and bringing them to the present. There's a wide variety of those that are, it can be as overt as, now, I'm going to interrupt you right there because what I'd like is, and then you explain away why you're interrupting them. I mean, you can make it that overt, or you can have subtle, nuanced things. Uh, you can get up to mess with the thermostat. You go, oh, I got to change the thermostat before the AC is about to turn on and it gets really cold in here. Or even if it's not, just looking to interrupt them in a way that's not going to damage all that rapport that you've been working to build, right? I mean,
no one wants to feel like they've just been cut off, like I just cut you off.
Yeah, so you don't want that. You want them to feel like if you're cutting them off, you're cutting them off for a reason, right? So I need to cut you off because the thing that I just heard you say that I really want to ask about is you said you have a son. What is it? What is it you're looking forward to about getting better so you can do with your son? Or what is it that your son's going to notice when you're better, or whatever it is? And then you start diving into present to future and those sorts of things. So you want to, as soon as I start opening up all that, yeah, I mean, there's a balance, like Richard said, of giving them a space, but also not letting them live in that space and not turning your office into a talk therapy session, which is a risky thing that we sometimes, I know I sometimes feel myself in a session where someone's getting emotive and realizing I'm flirting with talk therapy here. I've got to stick to my scope of practice and pay attention to where I need to pay attention and do the work that I need to do, even if they want to talk about stuff that's outside my scope of practice.
Let me interrupt you for just a minute, Scott. And the reason why I'm interrupting you is because I think it's really important to go back to what Alan Barsky just mentioned. He said, but he gets a lot of criers. And here's the interesting thing. When we give our clients permission to cry, they stop crying. Okay, it's the embarrassment. It really is. And so, I'm fine 8 out of 10 times they stop crying, right? So, I'll have my client the roll of Kleenex and the roll of Kleenex or the box of Kleenex or whatever, or I'll just point to it because it's there on the desk. And they'll, I'm sorry. I'll say no. That's why the Kleenex is there, because people often experience a tear. Either before, after, or even in the middle of a session. And then they're like, oh, it's okay to cry. And once they know it's okay, they actually stop. And it's sort of that paradoxical intervention, I suppose.
Yeah, a sentence that I like saying to my clients in those moments is, it's okay to not be okay. And you go, it's okay to not be okay. We're going to get to okay. You don't have to be okay yet. See, so I paste and lead, right? You see it, right? It's okay to not be okay. You don't have to be okay yet. We're going to get there together. That kind of thing. Cool.
Any questions in the chat box? We're fast running out of time, and I want to guide everyone through a hypnosis session tonight. Scott guided us last week, so I will guide us this week. It's actually not a roll of tissue, it's actually a roll of toilet paper. Sometimes I find that I'm just so involved with my work here at my desk, it's easier to not get up.
I was just hoping we were all going to gloss over the fact that you just have a roll of toilet paper at your desk, but I guess we're not. We're just going to...
It's actually allergy season here. You can even hear it in my voice. I saw a meme on Facebook earlier today that said the pollen count is so high, even the drug addicts are trying to figure out how to convert their crank back into Sudafed.
That's pretty good.
So this is because I had a constant runny nose the other day.
By the way, I do what James does. I have a box of Kleenex close to the client, but out of their line of sight. I have the exact same thing. Then you can just kind of gesture to it, and then they either say thank you and use it and stop crying, or they say thank you and then they keep going. But like Richard said, yeah, 80-something%. I don't know the exact number, but as soon as you give them permission, they just sort of pull it back together and start talking and say, okay, here's what's going on, or whatever.
If you treat crying as just, and laughing, just as something that people do, then it just is, and it doesn't stop anything. So,
I think laughing in the first session is a wonderful thing. If you can get them laughing before the induction, that creates rapport, that creates levity, That helps de-stress. You know, there's all the good neuromodulators that get involved in those moments and stuff like that.
So tell us a joke, Scott. Help us laugh.
Tell you a joke. You like doing that on demand, don't you?
Right.
Okay, well, give me a second. I got to think of an appropriate joke. No, I'm only thinking of inappropriate jokes now. I'll come up with one in a second.
Well,
I'm not a joke guy. I'm a funny story guy. All my stuff is too long.
All right. Well, I don't know any jokes either. The only joke I know, I think I told it a couple weeks ago. What's brown and sticky?
A stick.
Very good. My favorite joke. All right.
What's blue and smells like red paint?
What's blue and smells like red paint?
Blue paint.
That's actually my third favorite joke.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good. Tips box. Keith, answer me. Now we're getting into some interesting idea. A tips box.
Yes, there you go. I keep a tip box here on my desk, and you can see it's filled with tips that people have left me.
Yeah, those are just tips that people leave you.
Yeah, right there on the desk. So that's what I already do, Keith. Right there on the desk. Actually, I have no idea why my daughter's car broke down, and for some reason I put in a CD cover the money to pay the mechanic tomorrow. Lest you wonder, does Richard always have that much cash on his desk? No, it's to pay the mechanic for her. You can see my picture on Facebook of her broken CV axle. So the mechanic's getting paid in the morning. All right, let's do a short hypnosis session. One of the things we want to do every Sunday night is give you a chance to experience hypnosis as well. Hopefully some of the ideas that Scott and I have talked about have been helpful to you, and you'll be able to adapt them for work with your clients. Right now it's time for you to focus on yourself. So wherever you are, sitting in the chair, listening to this webcast, taking a breath. And as you take in that breath, notice what it feels like to breathe the air in and pay attention to the breath, and close your eyes. And with your eyes closed, as you continue to breathe in and breathe out, let the muscles of your body relax. Anywhere you're carrying any tension of the day, just let it relax. Sort of scan your body. Is your brow tight? And relax it. Unclench the jaw. Drop the shoulders. Let your hands become warm and heavy, and relax on the armrest of the chair. Your feet have been carrying you around all day long, and so you can, as they sit in the chair, just let them rest on the floor, relaxed. And it feels pretty good to take a minute to pay attention to the breath and to relax the body and let go of any tension. This is your time, the time that you've set aside on a Sunday night or a Monday morning, depending on where you are in the world, to learn new things, to visit with friends, and to experience hypnosis. And so as you breathe in and out, pay attention to the breath. And with each breath and with each number, bring yourself into that resource state that we call hypnosis. Each breath, each number, relaxing a little bit further into a state of learning, into a resource state of hypnosis. Never sleep, but deeply relaxed. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All the way down now, completely relaxed. Do you notice how, even though I've only been talking for about 2 or 3 minutes, in the state that you've created we call hypnosis, you've been able to access the internal resources which you know will be most helpful to you over the next couple of days, refreshed and invigorated from our time together today, prepared to act on some new ideas which you might have learned, and to interact with clients in some creative ways. You can even congratulate yourself. You can congratulate yourself because you've taken the time to learn some new strategies, to improve your skills, and to really be the best helper you can be in helping other people. And that's really a good thing. And so in this resource state that we call hypnosis, you can release anything known or unknown holding you back from accomplishing what's most important to you this week, letting it rise high above you and drifting away. And you can embrace that which is important to you, bringing inside of you confidence, success, learning, wisdom, and any other resource state that you will find valuable. Because this is only a short demonstration in our Sunday night class, it is time to return to the room around you. And so before you open your eyes, pay attention to two things. One, the chair below where you sit. And two, the air in the room around you. And three, the state that you've created right here and right now. Feels fantastic. To take a minute to practice hypnosis, meditation, state creation. And recognize that anytime, anywhere, over the next day or two or three, the next week or two or three, you can tap into this ability at any time in any place that's valuable to you. And so with each number and each breath, be ready to open the eyes and experience the rest of the night. 1, breathing in and noticing what that breath feels like. 2, breathing in again and paying attention to the oxygen in your lungs and aware that every breath brings oxygen to every cell of the body. And 3, opening the eyes, feeling fantastic. Opening the eyes, feeling fantastic. By the way, Keith Anthony asked a question. Will I get stuck in hypnosis if I lose the connection? My answer to that would be hopefully. See, the idea isn't to do hypnosis, but to become hypnotic. And so hopefully we'll stay in hypnosis 24 hours a day. By the way, I really truly believe it's impossible to not be hypnotized. We're always hypnotized. We're in some trance state all of the time. The real question for us is not how do I get hypnotized or unhypnotized. The question is really how do I use the trance states that exist. Scott, anything you want to add tonight? It's been great having everybody. Hopefully these thoughts have been helpful to you. And I'm looking forward to you joining me and Scott either in sunny Southern California or from wherever you are in the world via our simulcast, webcast of our course on June 5th.
The only thing I want to add is a reminder to everyone. First, thanks for being here, especially on a holiday like today. And if you have anything you want to talk about, hear about, learn about, or anybody you'd like to see interviewed, please let us know. Every time you guys contact us, Richard and I talk about it. This was a result of somebody having a question. This is for you. Tell everybody, get it trending on Facebook. Let's go viral. Let's get 1 million people watching this, and let's have a lot of fun together. Thanks for being here as always, and I'll see you guys next week.
It was great to have everybody. A round of applause for everybody in the chat room tonight. There we go, another round of applause for everybody in the chat room tonight. Good to have you. Thank you for participating. Same time, same channel next week with our awesome guest next Sunday night.